Hi, this is Joe Chambers. Welcome to Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage, the Vault Series. Today's clip is about a great songwriter-producer from Dothan, Alabama. Started out as a manager of a local band. That band became Roy Orbison's road band. He became the manager for Roy in the band, Buie. Buddy wrote some great songs for the Classics 4. Roy actually cut one of his songs as well. He later went to Atlanta and put together a band of studio musicians which became the Atlanta Rhythm Section, a great rock and roll band. Hope you enjoy it, and if you do, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. And for those of you who want to support the museum, we now have a Patreon account as well. Hope you enjoy it. Buddy Buie.
My name is Buddy Buie. My real name is Perry Carlton Buie, but all my life I've been called Buddy, and that's the name I prefer. And I'm from, now live in Eufaula, Alabama, but I'm from Dothan, Alabama originally.
So, when did you come from a musical family, or?
No, did not. As a matter of fact, I suppose you could say I'm a guitar owner more than a guitar player. And I've always written with the best guitar player. I wrote so many of my songs with J.R. Cobb, who is, in my opinion, a very, very good guitar player. The figure he did on Spooky was really great, and but I never personally have been a musician. I always booked bands. I always wrote songs in my head. I was ashamed to show them to anybody, and finally I got a guitar player that was real good, that really liked my stuff, and he put the chords to it. I said, no, go here, go there, and that's still the way I write.
What year did you get really into the writing?
1962. I started full time as a making my living from music in '62. I went on the road with Roy Orbison as his road manager, and I was writing songs at the time, and luckily Roy recorded one of my songs. It was just an album song called "Afraid to Sleep," but I was proud of that sucker.
And how did you meet Roy?
I met Roy Orbison because I was promoting shows, and Roy came to Dothan, Alabama, and had a band called the Webbs, and it was Bobby Goldsboro and other guys that you probably don't know. But when he came, every afternoon we'd go to somebody's house and we'd play Roy's records, and they had it down by the time he came to town where it sounded like you put a quarter in a jukebox. Well, when Roy came to town, he says, I got this sheet music he had Fred Carter was his music director, and they started passing out music. He said, "Does your band read?" And I said, "Yes." They didn't any of them read, and so he said, "Well, let's do Only the Lonely." And he started off dum dum dum, and he went, "My God, where did you get this band?" I said, "Well, it's a local band. I book them and I manage them, and I write with some." So he said, "Okay, I want y'all to go on the road with me. I want the band to go on the road with me." I said, "Well, that'd be great, but the band can't go unless I go." He said, "Okay, you can come along. You be the road manager." So we took my '55 Chevrolet and headed off into the world of rock and roll, and because Roy was really a pop singer, he's still my hero, and my real introduction to Nashville was through Roy, because he lived at Lake Henderson Lake.
And I did know one of those guys. He played guitar and he worked at a music store in Dothan.
John Rainey.
John Rainey, and then he passed away.
John Rainey was the first guy that took me seriously as a songwriter and helped me move from booking agent and promoter to songwriter. John Rainey was. And then a year later, we were riding, JR and I played golf. When we would ride, we'd go someplace at a golf course. And we were riding down the road, right around 85, down 85 South in Atlanta. And this instrumental came on. It was Spooky by Mike Shapiro. And I said, man, I love that. I'd love to write some lyrics to that. And JR said, well, Bill publishes it. So I called Bill up. I said, Bill, I love this song, Spooky. The sax solo, that record you got. I said, would you mind if we wrote some lyrics to it? He said, no, go ahead. So JR and I wrote the lyrics to Spooky, and we changed the arrangement where it fit with the pop top 40 song, because it was really a jazz song. And so he had that, and it was, it like the next three records I had went to #2 in the nation. Not #1 now, #2. Every time there was some song that beat us out, because we were with a small label that didn't have the political clout to get you that #1. And we wrote Stormy. And then my bass player on all my records was Emory Gordy. And Emory would sit out in the studio and he would play this little melody. I said, what is that? He said, something I'm fooling around with. I said, you care if JR and I carry it home and try to make it into a song? He said, I'd love for you to. So we took it, we wrote Traces of Love. And it was a very, very big song for us. It's still, I think it's number 37 in Billboard, not Billboard, but BMI's top 100 songs or something since they started. I don't know if that's changed any, but that's been 10 years ago. But the whole deal of starting writing and starting really getting into it and having hits early was, I thought it was the way everybody did it. Little did I know that I was really a lucky human being to get, I say luck, maybe because we were that good, I don't know.
I got to tell you, as a semi-writer sitting here next to you, Tickets Torn in Half has probably says so much more. That line killed me.
Baby photographs, 2 tickets torn in half.
Tickets Torn in Half. I mean, and that was you.
Yeah.
Man, I swear to you, that song. I mean, that if I could, that line. I mean, it just that's the whole song in itself is just Tickets Torn in Half. What an unbelievable, I mean, incredible line. I mean, I love that, man. So, who all did play on those sessions, by the way?
Okay, Emory Gordy played bass. J.R. Cobb played guitar. And Dennis St. John was the first drummer. And that's the way, we didn't use but 3 pickers on a session, and then we'd overdub everything. We had 2 3-track Scullies, and we'd go back and forth between them. And so that the musicians, they were all very good. We changed drummers 2 or 3 times. Robert Nix later became a drummer. But the nucleus of the Classics 4 records was Emory Gordy and J.R. Cobb. We would overdub his guitar. What we would do is we would put his guitar, and then I'd say, get him to tune out just a little bit, just a little intonation difference, and that would give the guitar with the good intonation and the one with the incorrect and together would make a wide sound. That's before we had all these pedals and stuff. We had to come up with ways to do it. And that's the other thing we did was wrap the capstan. we'd take the capstone tape recorder and wrap it with tape, and it would change speed, and that's how we got some of those guitar sounds. Emery Gordy has to be one of the greatest musicians I've ever been around. He could play anything. He wrote charts. He wrote the charts for Traces. He was just an incredible musician, and he left later on to go to California, and played with different people, and then he ended up in Nashville with Tony and all that crowd, and married Patty Loveless. He's just done great. He was a big man in Nashville, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not pretty smart to marry Patty Loveless too.
Yeah, he's not too dumb.
No.
Marrying Patty Loveless was a pretty good move.
Yeah. So, what about keyboards?
All my records have always been guitar records. I'm a guitar player lover. I am personally a guitar owner, but I love guitar players. Guitar players inspired me to write every song I ever wrote. I would sit there, and the way I write is basically to sit there with a musician and have him, and we just sit around and he plays, and we'll jam because I sing, and I tell you, I love musicians. I love guitar players, and all my co-writers have been, with the exception of some songs I did with the Atlanta Rhythm Section, "So Into You," "Imaginary Lover," and all that was done with Dean Daughtry on keyboards, and there wasn't a guitar involved in those. But 90% of my work has been done with guitar players.
Well, that's where I was headed, was Atlanta Rhythm Section. So how did the Atlanta, did you say that?
Atlanta Rhythm Section, the way the Atlanta Rhythm Section came about was, I was a big Allman Brothers fan, and the band was. The Allman Brothers had just been out, and just it had their first big album, and I went, wait a minute, I'm using, because at this time my studio group had expanded. I had Barry Bailey on guitar, I had Paul Goddard on bass, and Emery, and all these different musicians, and of course by this time Emery had moved on. But I said, guys, I'd been making top 40 records and following one after another, and I had been real fortunate and had the long string of hits. But writing hit songs and making hit records as a producer is a very taxing job, because you're following a one, and you don't want to copy it. That's a tendency to do, is copy it. But you want to, you say, well, people loved it, it must be all right. So in the same genre, the Classics 4 songs are all the same. Even Traces, you'll hear that da 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 of Spooky appearing at some place. And but the Atlanta Rhythm Section, I said, guys, let's do this band thing. Y'all could be a great band. And Ronnie Hammond, who's recently died, was my demo singer at the time. And so we started, and I had a manager as a producer who got us a record deal. Jeff Franklin was his name. Got us a deal with MCA, and we made 2 albums for MCA. Neither one of them were hits, but in our little circle in Atlanta, the band began to be known, and Alex Cooley, the great producer, not producer, what would you call that? A great promoter, had all the shows in Atlanta. and he began to like the band. They played in his club, and we grew from there. But it was all basically session musicians. JR on guitar, session player, Emery session player, Barry Bailey session player, Paul Goddard session player, and Robert Nix, who was with the Candymen, and Dean Daughtry, who was with the Candymen, was with Orbison. So that was the Allman Brothers was the inspiration. I said, if they can do it, we can, because Dwayne was a session player in most shows, and so that was a whole. And we were just tired of making top 40 records. We wanted to kind of spread our wings and do some things. And I was writing songs and with my co-writers that didn't fit the genre of top 40 records. And so we just basically, what happened was Al Cooper, Blood, Sweat and Tears, and Al Cooper, we had the same manager. And Jeff Franklin called and says, Al Cooper loves the sound of your studio in Atlanta, and he would love to come to Atlanta. And so he moved to Atlanta, and from that came Leonard Skinner, and he recorded in the daytime, and we recorded at night. And that's the way that whole deal came down. And I didn't take any more outside sessions at that time. I took a couple, but then I quit totally and devoted everything to the Atlanta rhythm section and trying to make it. We were determined. Everybody, we were fortunate enough the band played at the White House for the president, and the president, actually President Carter said, in introducing the band at the White House, they had a barbecue. He says, these people, this band, everybody was like me. Everybody said I'd never be president, and everybody said this band would never make it. And they really, that was the rap on us. They said all them boys is ugly, and they don't fit the mold, and so we were just damn well determined to keep doing it. And finally in '76, we went 4 years and 4 albums without really any big hits. We had Dorville, which was a regional hit.
Did you write
Yes.
Dorville? I love that song.
Yeah, I wrote Dorville with Robert Nix and Barry Bailey. And so in '76, we cut So Into You. And the record company says, we're going to put the whole record company behind, we believe in this. And later, a guy that became my partner, Arnie Geller, who was vice president, moved to Atlanta and became my partner. But the Atlanta Rhythm Section was, and still is to this day, a labor of love. Ronnie Hammond died, Bill Gilmore died, who was never in the rhythm section, but he was with the Candymen, and we replaced them with different people. Other people quit, and when things cooled off, it cooled off in about '80.
But I gotta tell you though, Imaginary Lover, and I love that record today. Still, it's one of those records when it comes on. I've got Sirius and all that stuff now. When it comes on, I crank it up, and I wouldn't dare change the channel. It's just a great record. The vocal, he was perfect.
Yeah. For
the record, he really delivered it well. The guitar sounds they grab you. It was just a great record, and what was the other one?
So Into You.
So Into You.
Imaginary Lover.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let it bother me tonight.
And another one, great groove, man, just perfect. It's just like magic,
Well, thank you for saying that those songs were magic. I get a kick out of Imaginary Lover because if I've been asked this one time I've been asked 1,000, was that song about masturbation? And the answer is yes.
I wondered that myself. But what a great record, man! I mean,
Yeah, thank you.
Jeez, I mean, really a great song and a great record together.
That's what it takes to make a big hit.
Yeah. How did you find these musicians? I mean, were they just?
They're just local. The musicians that ended up in the Atlanta Rhythm Section were just local musicians playing in local bands. Barry Bailey, the guitar player, and Paul Goddard, the bass player, played with a group called St. John and the Cardinals. JR was with the Classics 4. Dean Daughtry and Robert Nix were with the Candyman. So these was all musicians that were in my circle. I booked them, I wrote with them, and so they became the studio band. At that time, there was a Memphis Rhythm Section, a Nashville Rhythm Section, and so we started talking about what to name the band, and we came up with all these clever ideas. I said, hell, this is the Atlanta Rhythm Section. That's what this is. And so a lot of people don't know when you say Atlanta Rhythm Section, what that means. It means that they were the band in Atlanta that played on all the records. And so that's how the Atlanta Rhythm Section came about, and that's what they were. They were session musicians, every one of them.
Did any of those guys, now, we met with Joe South the other day. And again, what a great...
Oh, what a great... Joe South is one of my heroes.
Me too, and I didn't know him until the other day, but I got that chance to tell him, which is great.
It turns out that the records that we make live on.
Well, actually, people look at them like they're their records.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my song.
Yeah.
Like, did you have anything to do with any of Joe's South stuff or Billy Joe Royal or?
The only Billy Joe Royal I recorded Billy Joe Royal on Cherry Hill Park. That was my record I made.
As a producer?
As a producer, yeah, and as a publisher, and it was Robert Nix and Bill Gilmore, two of my writers, wrote that song, and Cherry Hill Park was a big hit for us.
I love that record. That was another one, man. I really, to this day, I love that record. I'll get on YouTube and just watch. But golly, that's such a great record.
Well, Billy Joe Royal is an incredible artist. He has a voice it sounds exactly the same today.
I Knew You When was a...
Joe South was probably one of the better writers I ever knew. And Joe had a period there where everything he touched was golden. Last night we were at the Georgia Music Hall of Fame Awards, and Justin Bieber was there, and you know what I thought? I thought how little has changed. Here it is 50 years later. Here is a good-looking kid, sings great, and he's doing commercial songs. I mean, those records he's making could have been cut. He does a little rap, I suppose it'd be called rap in some of his songs, but he sings it, and it's also the same. Now, a lot of the music is not the same, but there still is the heart of the chart, the heart of the top 40 records is still that song that people can relate to, and it hadn't changed much.
Is there anything else you want to say to anybody, or to the young people, or?
Oh, well, no, I just think that Nashville has really become, I've seen Nashville come from a closed town till outsiders. When you came into Nashville, boy, they'd give you the cold shoulder if you weren't, not just the union, I mean the players themselves. Everybody protected their positions, and Nashville has now become, I tell everybody that young musicians, I say, you need to move to Nashville. And they said, well, I'm not country. I said, son, you don't understand. 90% of those musicians in Nashville are rock and roll players playing country music.
It is the music place.
It's the
now.
place for musicians to
Right,
be.
right,
Not L.A., not New York, Nashville.
right.
And I think it's because it's so eclectic. There's so many different forms of music recorded there. And Nashville has become the really only place a kid out in hinterlands that wants to be a professional musician, a session musician, or wants to go on the road or wants to write or whatever, that Nashville is where to go.